Welcome back to the Sunday Footy Show. It is now time for Inside the 10. I'm pleased to say Michael Shamus from the Sydney Morning Herald joins us, Travis Main from the Courier Mail, and the Eighth Immortal. We all know him very well. He doesn't need a byline.
Publications.
All right, well, let's dive straight in. The first topic that we want to touch on is Mitchell Moses, the contract situation. Is it becoming a distraction, do you feel?
Well, I don't know if it's becoming a distraction. I think what it affects is brand Mitchell Moses. I think Parramatta fans are getting frustrated. He's been sitting on these offers for quite a while now, and you get to the point where you start asking, when's enough? Like, he's not an elite player in the game. He's not top five, and he's getting offered $1.3 million, which is top one, top two, top three players in the game money. So you sit there and you think, okay, when's enough? How long does this keep dragging out? Not that we don't expect him to sign with Parramatta. I think everyone, even at Parramatta, expects it to head down that way. But it just looks as though he's being greedy, because the fact that he walked out on the Tigers, Parramatta gave him that chance. He's been there 5 years. He hasn't won the comp. At what point do you turn around and say to Parramatta, you know what, I'm going to stay, thanks for the offer, and just move on and play football? It just seems as though it's been dragging on for months and months.
What's the hold-up, Chammy? You're the man from the West.
I don't know. All reports are that he's going to stay. Yeah. So I don't know what he's waiting on. I know that Mitchell's was considering an offer from the West Tigers, but I'd be stunned if he goes to the West Tigers.
No, he won't go to the West Tigers. He'll stay at Para. I think he'll be done in the next week or so. But that's the market value for a halfback. There's none around.
And is it just because this is getting played out? Like, does this go on behind the scenes with a lot of other players? But with someone of Mitchell's calibre, it's just highlighted.
Well, I feel like he'll stay. So if you're going to stay, just sign it, get on with it. So I don't know whether it's coming from his management or it's coming from Mitchell, whatever. There's some clauses. Just get it sorted, sign.
Do you think it affected him Thursday night, Joey, the way he played?
No, not at all.
It's a lot more complicated in this day and age, playing in the NRL, than it was.
Not really. You just get a pen and just sign your name.
For that sort of money, Joe, wouldn't you just sign it already? Like, are you fighting over $50,000 at that level?
Look, no, Mitchell, I do. He's not motivated by money. And Uncle Benny's got plenty, so... Look, I think it'll be done this week, and it'll be moving forward. I think they'll be fine.
Right, one of the big talking points we've already discussed is to do with the independent doctors. Are they getting too involved in the game at the moment?
Yeah, well, I don't think so, actually. I'm going to be very critical of Wayne Bennett and Ricky Stewart's comments. I thought they were totally off the mark yesterday. The independent doctor was put in for a reason, and that's because the clubs weren't acting, or there was too much pressure on their club doctors to make the decisions for these guys on the field. There's a lot happening in the game. They could have a guy already in the dressing shed's undergoing a HIA. They don't see what's happening, so it's there for a reason. And I think they were over the mark there.
I think it was brought in. I take your point on it, right? Because clubs have been brought in the system for a while. But what severity do you interject yourself? Because you look at the way that Kalen Pong came off the field, I think it was rather innocuous. Jacob Carraz and Ricky Stewart blew up yesterday about Sebastian Kris. At what point is it serious enough to warrant coming off the field and affecting a result?
Like, they've got to be at the ground. Simple as that. They've got to be at the ground. This isn't telehealth. You don't do it over the phone. Get face-to-face with the doctor and they can assess it. Yeah. And if they have to come off, I know there's that 15-minute period now. If they come from the bunker, just make it 5 minutes. So they're at the ground, come here, how you feeling? Yeah, give them all the tests. Get back on there. If not, gone.
I think the threshold's going to come lower and lower because concussions across the world, not just rugby league, is becoming a bigger problem by the year. So I think that they're always erring on the side of caution now. We're going to see more things like what happened with Kalen Ponga the other night.
It's affecting the product, though.
You do want them to be cautious. It is a serious issue, and I do understand that you do want an independent doctor so that they're not involved in teams and they can make a call independently. Yeah. Not saying that they wouldn't, but it is just easier to have an independent doctor. But do you feel like they have taken it this year to an extra level of caution?
Of course they have. Of course they have. Because as I said before, the big worry is not only rugby league, but codes are worried about being sued. We saw what happened in the NFL over there. They got them for $1 billion, didn't they, or something? But, I think the independent doctor, they can have one in the bunker who can tip to the one, but they need one at the ground. Because at the moment you can look at it. I know the club doctors are under pressure, but you're questioning the integrity of the club doctors, which I think is not on.
I think Wayne Bennett hit the nail on the head. Punish the clubs who try and cheat the system more than what they did, because clubs were willing to cheat the system because it wasn't that much of a deterrent. If there is a serious deterrent, then we'll see less and less, and then hopefully don't get in situations where players are coming off the field questioning why they're actually leaving the field, like we've seen a few times this weekend.
All right, moving on. The NRL, this is a big topic, nurturing players that are coming through the system. How does the NRL stop clubs who don't nurture talent poach players from other clubs who do?
It's a difficult one.
Well, you can't. You can't stop it. But I did my piece this week in the Sydney Morning Herald, the award-winning piece. There should be some compensation. And Penrith is the classic example. They're a club that has a stack of juniors, and they bring them on and they coach them. They put so much resources into these players. They come through after being in the junior system for 4 or 5 years, and they get to an NRL stage, and then they play for 12 months or 2 years, and then they get poached. So it's going to happen. It's going to continue to happen. So there should be some compensation from a club that buys a local junior back to that club.
I think it's more about helping the clubs that develop the juniors retain them. So whether you've had a kid for, say, 5 years, he's getting big offers, do you get some salary cap compensation there? Like a little bit of his salary is not counted against your cap, and then they were able to match these offers from the rival clubs and retaining the players without breaking the bank and breaking their own salary cap.
I think you're referring to Penrith, right? The way they've lost quite a few over the years. Penrith should never be in a situation where they're losing Spencer Leniu and Stephen Crichton, guys who were brought up in the area, played their whole careers for the lower grades at the Panthers, and then move on because they're being squeezed out for salary cap reasons. Penrith would have loved to keep those guys, but they can't because of the salary cap. I know Joey's saying that you potentially get compensation for it, but that doesn't help keep them. Do you think there should be salary cap exemptions, though, to actually allow those clubs to keep them together, or does that defeat the purpose?
Then it's unfair on the clubs that don't have a big junior base. So then what do they do? When they, for instance, some of the inner city clubs only have competitions with, say, half a dozen or 12 teams in it. Then they're punished. But for Newcastle, for example, the last 20 years, Newcastle lost Greg Bird, Greg Inglis was in the system, Latrell Mitchell, Boyd Cordner, these sort of players, truly elite players. I know you can't keep them all, but if you have a look at the Newcastle system at the moment, I think they have 70 kids on scholarship. Did Newcastle go, you know what, we identify 5 or 6 of them who are genuine NRL players, we'll put money into them. The rest is just do your best. It's a tough one.
Yeah, because you don't want to make other teams not have players who, they might not be able to grow them from the grassroots up. Well, speaking of money, the Dolphins. Should the NRL have given the Dolphins more money, especially in this first year, to poach players, to bring players up, to make them a force to be reckoned with?
100%. I think it was a big mistake by the NRL not to help them out more. We saw with the AFL launching the Gold Coast Suns, the GWS Giants, they got massive concessions when they came into the game, probably too much. In Sydney particularly, it became a big issue with the Giants because they became too good too quick. But look, I think the Dolphins were up against it, particularly with the time frame they had to sign players. They just didn't get enough time to really be able to work on those elite players in the game, pitch to them the Dolphins' view of what they were trying to achieve and sign them. So, look, they're starting to get the things together with next year. Herbie Farnworth, Tom Flegler, 2 good signings. But I think the NRL should have helped them out a little bit more, even though it would have caused a massive drama with the other 16 clubs.
If they had more money, do you think they would have nailed Munster down?
I don't know. I think they couldn't have offered Munster any more by the sounds of it. No, his offer was 1.4, 1.5 million. He's decided to play in Melbourne because he doesn't want to finish his career at a struggling club. Because, look, everyone can see the Dolphins eventually will get there, but for the next 2, 3, 4 years, they're going to be down the bottom.
Yeah, I'm with Travis on this. I think the NRL should have helped the Dolphins out with extra salary cap and sort of work towards going back to level playing field within 2 or 3 years, because it's not a level playing field. They've got a team who've never played together before, who haven't spent time together before, and they're coming into a competition where teams have been developing and playing together for years. So, yeah, I think they should have been given a salary cap exemption to at least go after a marquee. I know they offered Cameron Munster big money, but the sort of money where you actually can't say no to, they would have had that opportunity.
Money
to do
talks, doesn't it, in the game? We've seen it time and time again. If it's enough, a player will take the money and go. And I think they just quite didn't get enough from the NRL.
The situation with David Fifita, can you tell us what the future potentially is holding for him, where you think that he could be playing?
Oh, by the sounds of it, it's either Brisbane or the Gold Coast Titans. Now, Canberra tried to get David Fifita and tried to get his girlfriend, Shaylee Benn, over to the club and get them over to the nation's capital together as a package deal, but doesn't look like that's the case. Is that right, Travis? It's Brisbane or the Gold Coast Titans.
I believe it's the Titans or the Broncos, and I think the Broncos are firming by the day. I think they're going to have a real big shot at David here, and I think he didn't really want to leave the Broncos to begin with. It was sort of a perfect storm at Brisbane. It was 2020, COVID. They were down the bottom of the ladder on their way to the wooden spoon, and the Titans just kept going up and up and up. to that point where he just said, I've got to take this 1.25 and go. So it's going to be interesting. I think David's going to have a really tough time making the decision. Before he changed clubs, he went to and fro. He jumped back and forth. There was a lot of backflipping going on. So I think the Broncos are getting more confident by the day.
Does he owe the Titans, Joey? Because he's gone on big money, hasn't played to that potential.
Well, he's a byproduct of not having the class players around him. You know, as a back rower, you need your halves putting you into space and knowing when to give you the ball. He hasn't had those players there. Kieran Foran will help him out.
All right. Well, great to have you on, Travis. Michael, Joey, how was your Inside the 10 debut for 2023?
I want to go home now.
God's country,
you
Joey.
do ride in
God's
the Sydney
country.
morning. Oh, is this the first
Time back. Actually, this is where I was crying.
This is where
I was crying
this is where
Origin
the
time.
tears happened at Origin. All right. Well, it's great to have you back here.